the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq 100. Now, next week on Wednesday, you have your FOMC statement and interest rate decision. This will be the press conference FOMC meeting. It's going to be the biggest thing probably going into next week, so make sure you understand that because everything's going to tie back into that. Now, as we jump into the charts and as we look at the S&P and the Nasdaq, you're seeing some decent movement over the past few days. Now, let's exactly go over what we're looking at here. Now, we go back. Let's go to around the weekly really quick so you can get a visual on the higher time frames. Now, first of all, we're going to start with the Nasdaq, then we'll work into the S&P. The S&P does look better. So the Nasdaq, you're still below 2021 highs. That's the important part to understand. 17.95, 17.98, basically 18K flat, right? Number one there. Going to ES, you are already well above that area, getting back above it right there. You can see around 50, 90, 50, 94. You're sitting around 50 points higher than that right now. That's the important thing to know. Okay, you're also breaking that little bit of a down structure that we had where you're making lower highs there as well and lower lows. Very bearish. We also pulled the Lux levels and now you're making supports down here. These are all things that you wanted to see. Very similar to what we were saying on the downside, now kind of getting over a little bit of a reversal. Now, let's go into why this isn't necessarily the most bullish thing just yet. Number one, volume on this reversal has not been fantastic. That is the number one thing we need to attack and understand. Day one of this, yeah, you had 100 million, but ultimately it hasn't been the greatest turnaround just yet, going in from last Friday into today. Okay, understand that volume has been lackluster to say the absolute minimum. Number one. Okay, now you are getting a push up, so nevertheless, you're still getting some good movement there. We go to SPY and QQQ, right? You're getting back up, trying to get some love. You're trying to get above those key levels we mentioned, 508.2. So really nice. You know, there's the levels we talked about yesterday coming into today where you wanted to see that mount, and you are getting that. So these are good things that we're seeing now, right? These are now taking place. You want to get above 432.6, but you get above that, you're cruising back to the upside. So those are things that are good on the broad markets and the charts. Now, again, we go to the daily, go to the weekly. There's still no reason to be concerned here because you're still overall holding up very good as long as we continue to push back up, right? You know, the trend is still very much intact. You know, if we just draw this all the way out, you can clearly see how we're behaving here. Clearly very, very strong, in line with the overall trend going all the way back to the bottom, October 2022. So whether you like it or not, that is kind of how we're performing here. Now, again, what's going to happen into this week? Now, I'm not going to tell you how the Fed meeting is going to go because PCE data came out and was basically in line with expectations, slightly higher on the headline. Core was just flat, no change overall. This is going to be interesting with the Fed. I want to hear their tone and overall how they're reacting to this. Now, it's also important to understand, if you go to Twitter as well, really quick with earning whispers, is that next week we're also going to get some good earnings, okay? This coming week, we have some very big ones. We have Amazon, AMD, PayPal. That's all on Tuesday. And then again on Thursday, you're going to have your big boy, Apple. That's going to be your biggest earnings probably of the week, the one that you have to watch the most for. That or Amazon's going to be your biggest, so just keep watching those. Now, this week, earnings, again, they kind of did their job. If I go over, Microsoft did well, beat, gapped up, held up decent. We go to Meta. Meta was the only earnings that, in my opinion, were just god awful. Okay, I'm gonna tell you right now, Meta was god. It was the revenue and EPS wasn't bad, right? They just show that they're probably gonna slow down with growth, number one, and that they're dumping a lot of money into AI because it's gonna take money to make money in that sector. Now the market didn't like them spending all that money or the expectations there because the last thing they spent money on was the headset, the Oculus, and things didn't go so well there. So that's the question mark here, but I still think Meta will recover. You go down into Netflix, also one of the bad ones. But again, were they missing on EPS? Were they missing on revenue? No, they were not. That's the very important part here. Google, a company that doesn't report well, that hasn't reported well in the past year, smashed, destroyed earnings here. First dividend overall, very big. So again, these are the things that I'm watching for here. Even at Tesla, get some love on the upside. Low growth, but advancing and dumping their money into AI, which is very similar to Meta, except Tesla's not making money. But that's the funny part there. So that's what we're looking at. Overall, I do believe earnings have done decent. They have not done bad. Now, again, we have our final little last lap coming in here with AMD and Apple, and then the week after that, I think we have NVIDIA. So you want to see if AMD can get some love here. Now, I will say AMD, since essentially beginning of March, has been getting slammed So AMD, Apple are some of the biggest opportunities out there because they've just been getting hit so much, like Apple really since December. Now, the thing with Apple that interests me in AMD is specifically with Apple, no one's expecting good earnings. Nobody. Like, nobody's going to say, I expect them to really be killing it on sales this quarter. Yeah. No one's expecting that. Understand that first. So that's where this could be the catch-22 and the money-making opportunity. Just like Tesla, no one expected them to do well. And they didn't do well. They just had some moderately good news of new investments they were looking at. So again, things to consider and to be looking at.
Speaking of trading, if you've been using a basic investing app for the past few years, I highly recommend that you step it up and graduate to a better investing platform that can grow with you, which in my opinion is today's sponsor, Moomoo. Like other platforms, Moomoo has a super intuitive user interface, really easy to use, but unlike the other platforms, they have everything that you're using right at your fingertips. Whether it be your analysis tools, up-to-the-minute live data on the markets, what's happening with options data. And it's worth mentioning, while other platforms charge a premium for the quality of data that you're getting here at Moomoo, Moomoo does not charge a dime when it comes to getting live data on the charts. So for any of you that are serious about your investment journey, Moomoo's platform is worth checking out. The link is down below. It helps me out, it helps you out. If you have any questions, comment down below. Let's get back to the video.
Now, very quickly, let's jump into the DXY. And again, as we look at the DXY, you're coming back into a massive level around 107, 107.5. I will acknowledge that DXY does look like it's bull flagging. So again, I urge caution into Wednesday. This coming week, Monday and Tuesday, probably not going to be the greatest price action days. Monday might be green. Tuesday, you have Amazon earnings in the after hours, so I expect chop. So Monday, Tuesday, be careful. All I got to say. Again, especially with the DXY signaling a risk off environment as well. The US 30-year yield continues to rip up, getting borderline back into all-time highs as well. So these are concerning areas here. Now, the one thing that I will say about these areas is some of the areas of inflation that have been, causing issues, like oil. Oil is getting a little bit of a dip. Now, you want to see if oil get more dip to the downside. You want to, as the Middle East gets more, I don't want to say peace, but things kind of de-escalate, I think oil will drop as well, which will be beneficial for inflation. Bitcoin is stagnating here, really doing nothing. Really wild action, to be honest, but interesting. Had happening. I'm still bullish on Bitcoin. Just going to tell you that right now. But that's my viewpoint there. So really quick, going into this week into some stocks, I'll have a bigger and better rundown on Sunday, so make sure you check it out. But NVIDIA, you're waiting to see if you can break back over that 906 level up here, guys. That's your really big level, okay? And I'm on the daily higher time frames, but also to you guys, if you're interested in our Lux Algo, our key indicators here and what we're using, again, our custom scripts, the link is down below for our volume as well, buyers versus sellers. But again, the link is down below. Use code OD40 for 40% off. Make sure you check them out. But yeah, so going into NVIDIA, you want to see back above 906 before you get really bullish, maybe pushing back into highs. But I do think AMD will have a lot to say about that. If AMD can break back above 164.5, I'm very bullish there as well. So make sure you're watching that one here on the week. Okay. Apple's earnings are going to be pretty big for me. I'm not going to lie. I'm very, very interested. And I'm tempted to go long on Apple. I'm not going to lie. I don't like earnings, but I'm tempted. Apple's 200 SMA is near 181. If we ever get back above the 200 SMA, it's an easy long in my opinion. Any upside, that's where we'd be tracking it to, is near 182, 181 locally. Besides that, that is all you care about right now. So that's what I'd be looking at right now. Again, those are our visuals here. Biggest things I'm watching going in this week, though, as far as price action for potential buys. Number one is going to be Meta. Looking at Meta, again, you want to see it get back above 453, but above 453, we push probably back into 470. But again, this is your gap fill to the upside, and then you have a gap fill to the downside. So I think Meta will be interesting to play either way. Definitely one of those things you have to be watching this week because you're probably going to get really good action. If you start to break back above highs here, I'm targeting 453, then 469 locally there. Netflix. I like Netflix a lot too. You came right down to our level near 543. You're holding that level in the short term. But what I will say, okay, one big thing that we have to, look at here, okay, right? When we come back into this, there's a few major question marks because this thing might get ugly, and it might get ugly quick, guys. It might really get ugly, okay? Just really quick draw on the pennant. I know it's ugly. I don't want to spend too much time here. You might be consolidating for another breakdown. And again, my ideal entry ever for like Netflix is near that 200 SMA down there. So on it, like again, when I see downside on some of these stocks, I just get excited because you get a lot of big opportunities. And if we're going to see sellers try to step in prior to FOMC, these are the ones that I'm interested in, getting the dips back down to these massive supports. So Netflix, make sure you're watching. Now, I'm not saying I'm going short on it. I'm looking to buy out the dip. But I'm also looking at if it starts to break back up, you're looking for that gap fill easily back into 600. So again, you can play it both ways. Very interesting, very good price action to be playing out here. As far as semiconductors, I think ARM is one of the best bangs for your buck. I do, and I want to see a push down to $80, near $81. That's the best case scenario here. I don't know if we're going to see it though. If it gets back down to $80, I think a long-term position is like a must here. I think ARM is grossly, I don't want to say undervalued, but I think maybe overlooked when it goes into the semiconductor space. Very big. So I'd definitely be paying close attention to them if they get the dip down here as well. Again, looking more towards opportunities if we get downside, because again, people get mad at me because long-term I'm bullish and I'm this and I'm that. Again, those are my viewpoints in the long term, guys. But when it comes to day trading, I try to be as unbiased as possible. Like long term, the market typically goes up. I don't think we're going to get another 40% correction on the S&P or the Qs, back-to-back years. That would be kind of crazy. But this is just ultimately what I'm looking at, the opportunities in front of me and where I see the value. If you have any questions, comment down below. I'll see you guys on Sunday. Have a good one, traders.